What's up? Welcome back to Nowstalgia. Dave here with my reaction recap of the 2025 Emmy Awards. This is a season that I think surprised in some ways in terms of where the wins ended up taking place. We definitely could sense the tide turning. You could read the tea leaves over what ended up happening. I think nothing was super surprising if you were making the predictions the day of the awards. But if we reflect back on when the nominations came out, there's definitely some things that didn't go the way we might have expected originally. And I think that's, interesting and cool and welcome. That's not always the case when it comes to the Emmys. So I'll just recap the, big, high level awards and we'll talk about where things went. So a best drama series, this from the jump was really a battle between The Pitt and Severance, with Severance being the leading nominated show for this Emmy Awards, cycle. And for the first time in 7 years or so, that most nominated drama series did not win the award. The Pitt ended up winning Best Drama Series. Now, that's a decision that I welcome. The Pitt, to me, is my second favorite show of the year after Andor, which unfortunately never really had a chance to win this category despite a just nomination. But The Pitt wins in its first season versus Severance Season 2. And that's really awesome, and I think it speaks to two different modes of television, right? Severance is a show, lavish budget, very expensive, and impeccable production design and craft. To me, the most successful thing about this show. I'm not the biggest fan of it overall, but that's a show that took so much time and money, 3 years between seasons, right? Meanwhile, The Pitt, freshman show, a throwback in every sense. Obviously, all the ER comparisons, the ER sequel, the ER, spiritual successor, all of that. The Pitt is a return to a traditional form of TV and traditional type of TV season, a 15-episode season at that, right? And The Pitt will be returning in a year's time from its first season, with season 2 coming out in January. People are really excited about what The Pitt is, and also it was really great show. I loved it. I love the characters, love the performances, and I think it just, in a lot of respects, is a polar opposite of Severance, and it seems that just seemed to resonate with some people, enough people to end up beating a monumental show like Severance. And of course, Severance not winning Best Drama Series is definitely a loss for Apple, given all those nominations, because Apple did win Best Comedy Series, and they had a chance to win the double there for the first time since HBO did it, almost a decade ago with, I think it was Game of Thrones and Veep. And, the studio winning Best Comedy Series, that makes a lot of sense. That was the heavy favorite, the most nominated comedy series. Just a show, due to what it's about, that lends itself to being very well liked by awards voters and being, well liked by the town and all of that. Its competition was Hacks, the previous winner in the category, which was, it's no cakewalk to win, but I think people were really excited to vote for the studio, and that's ended up, what happened. Now, going into the awards, I was expecting The Pitt and Severance to split, and I wasn't really sure where it would go. I think I was leaning Noah Wyle winning Best Actor and Severance winning Best Drama Series. I think that's what I expected to happen, but what ended up happening was Noah Wyle also beat Adam Scott to win Best Drama Actor. So The Pitt won both those head-to-heads with Severance, which is not what I expected. Best Drama Actress also, to me, not a surprise, but to the betting markets, to the prognosticators, it was a surprise. The favorite was Kathy Bates from Matlock, the lone, broadcast television nomination in the field here. And I just never got on board with her being the favorite because of where that show lives. And I had always expected Britt Lauer to win for Severance, notably not even being nominated for Severance Season 1. Now she wins for Severance Season 2. I think that was a really good nomination and win. I definitely like it. Drama Supporting Actor, this was Tremel Tillman winning for Severance, defeating primarily Walton Goggins from The White Lotus Season 3 on HBO. And that's also kind of what I expected to win. I think that's the most exciting person to win in that category. Super Just. I was happy with that. Drama Supporting Actress. This is another one where it's you look at the nominations, and this is a common problem with the Emmys of late, where a smaller number of shows really hog all the nominations. You had this happen with White Lotus season 2. It happened again with White Lotus season 3, where like seemingly the entire cast gets nominated across the supporting actor and actress fields. So you have a bunch of the White Lotus women nominated in this category, and you were like defaulting to like Carrie Coon being the favorite here, of course, previous, awards darling that she is. But it ends up going to Catherine Lanassa from the Pitt, of course, for her portrayal as Nurse Dana. Really awesome win. And I think when the nominations came out, people were really stoked that she got nominated, but I don't think anyone was really expecting her to win. It kind of speaks to that momentum that the Pitt kind of picked up throughout that voting cycle. Back to comedy here. The studio, of course, wins series. What this means, of course, and look at the rest of the categories, is The Bear gets completely shut out for season 3 after, winning, I think it was double-digit Emmys both times for season 1 and 2. What does that mean? Obviously, season 3 was the weakest of the 4 Bear seasons that we've gotten. It's also a show that should not be nominated in comedy series. We're, a broken record at this point with that topic, but maybe that's wearing on the voters, who can say. Comedy actress went to Jean Smart, her 4th win in a row. She has won it for all 4 seasons of Hacks. And while she's super great in the show, she remains good every single time. It would be nice if we could spread the love, just a little bit with that. Unfortunately, like who was the pick there? Was it Kristen Bell for Nobody Wants This? Io Debris for The Bear in a down year? There wasn't really like the true challenger this time around. I think because Io won before, there's less of a campaign to get her to win again. So I just kind of defaulted to Jean Smart, I guess you could say. Comedy actor, of course, went to Seth Rogen. Again, Jeremy Allen White, seemingly no threat to unseat him there. Adam Brody for Nobody Wants This, just not quite up to snuff in that category. Comedy supporting actress, I was very happy to see Hannah Einbinder win for Hacks, her first time winning after some nominations here. Super cool, of course, defeating the previous winner, Liza Colin-Zayas from The Bear. You had multiple studio people here. Maybe there was some vote splitting with Catherine O'Hara and Catherine Hahn, who can say. Comedy supporting actor, though, this is by far the biggest shock of the night, and very interesting for what it might mean. I was expecting Ike Barinholtz to win for the studio, but it was definitely a category that's up in the air, right? You had Harrison Ford for Shrinking, his first Emmy nomination. Coleman Domingo for the 4 seasons, but an awards darling in general when you look to the Oscars and things like that. Evan Moss-Baccarat still here for The Bear, previous winner. Bowen Yang, Michael Urie here as well. But Jeff Hiller wins for Somebody Somewhere. It's the final season of that show. And to win a acting category for a show that otherwise was very scantily nominated and didn't have a strong history of previous nominations of previous seasons, that's like super unheard of. And I think it definitely opens up the prognostication in the future that, things can happen, because like this is completely out of left field. There's like very little precedent for this show winning a big category like that, given the level of nominations it had. So shout out Jeff Hiller. That's super cool. And of course, with limited series, this largely went chalk. Adolescence for Netflix wins limited series. And even though it had less nominations than The Penguin, it was seemingly the favorite the entire time, given just the cultural zeitgeist, came out a little bit more recently. Penguin also, in a sense, got its shine at the Globes last year, so that's perhaps something. Kristen Milioti still wins limited actress for The Penguin, kind of by default, didn't have much of a true challenger there. Limited actor, I was wondering if Colin Farrell could win for The Penguin here, like he did the Globes, but no, it ends up going to Stephen Graham for Adolescence. I was thinking Stephen Graham also gets to win as a producer for Adolescence. Maybe he wouldn't win for acting, but he did, which is fine. Limited supporting actress goes to Erin Doherty for Adolescence, super justified. And of course, limited supporting actor goes to young Owen Cooper, the youngest winner in the category. The completely sensational breakout of the series. Super justified, even if it's all a bit predictable. And then, some of the other categories, drama series writing went to Dan Gilroy for Andor. Kind of amusing that only Dan Gilroy gets the official nomination there, even though we know that Tony Gilroy had his hand in every single aspect of that show. But I like the recognition, really happy with that. The Pitt was nominated twice in that category. That might have did some vote splitting there. Well, you will take it nonetheless. Limited series writing went to Adolescence, Jack Thorne, Stephen Graham. So I think that's a triple for Stephen Graham, pretty sure. And then comedy series writing went to The Studio, Seth Rogen, Evan Goldberg, and Friends. Of course, variety series goes to John Oliver, like normal. Talk series, though, goes to Stephen Colbert, in his final run of the show, of course, infamously canceled recently with all the controversy that was involved with that. So I think that was a bit predictable, even though Colbert hasn't previously won that category. But makes kind of sense narrative-wise, And then with directing, you have Seth Rogen winning again for comedy series directing. You have Adam Randall winning for Slow Horses on Apple for drama series directing. Didn't expect that. I definitely would have picked Giannis Metz for Andor myself. And then Phil Baranti wins for Adolescence for limited series directing as well. So yeah, I think like most of the time for most categories every single year, there's not a lot of quibbles to have. They're nominating good stuff. People are winning. It's largely earned. Would we like some more diversity in terms of volume of shows nominated? Yes. Too many people from the same show and supporting. Don't need to keep doing that. Otherwise, though, the Emmys are doing what they do. Obviously, they are the least popular of the major awards shows that we talk about here, pale behind the Oscars and the Grammys. Those challenges remain in terms of just the challenge of the concept of the awards television season. Is the fall spring season of TV doesn't make much sense and not really relevant to the average TV viewer anymore. Emmys are challenged, but for what they represent, for the small piece that they still do, I think it went pretty well. Let me know though, what did you think of the 2025 Emmy Awards? Which winner were you most happy to see, and what do you want to see nominated next year? Me personally would love House of the Dragon season 3 to get back on the board. Completely shut out, not nominated at all for season 2, which I thought was a bit harsh myself. Hopefully they can get back up on the podium in the future. First Thrones season to have no nominations. I believe in HBO. Let me know though. And for more TV reviews as well as awards reactions and predictions, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.